Hello everyone, welcome to today's presentation. I'm excited to have you here as we explore the important topics of institutional ethical committees, animal ethical committees, and publication ethics. Today, we'll discuss their roles, responsibilities, and why they are essential for maintaining integrity in research. We'll also look at how these committees help ensure ethical standards are upheld across various aspects of scientific work. Let's get started. Let's take a closer look at the Institutional Human Ethical Committee, or IHEC, which is the standard term used in India for the body responsible for reviewing research involving human participants. This committee is an independent entity that ensures the protection of the dignity, rights, and welfare of individuals taking part in research studies. You might also hear it referred to as an IEC, or Institutional Ethics Committee, or even IRB, which stands for Institutional Review Board. The key point here is that the human qualifier helps distinguish it from committees that oversee animal research, known as IAEC. The primary role of the IHEC is to review, approve, and monitor research projects. This includes clinical trials, to make sure they are conducted ethically and safely. It's important to note that this committee operates within the framework of national guidelines, such as those provided by the ICMR in 2017 or the CDSCO, which is the Central Drugs Standard Control Organization. And a crucial point to remember, in India, if you're planning to conduct a clinical trial for a new drug, you'll need not only approval from the IHEC, but also clearance from the CDSCO. Both approvals are mandatory to ensure the study meets all ethical and regulatory standards. This entire process underscores the importance of safeguarding human participants while advancing medical research in our country. Let's take a closer look at the composition of the IHEC, IEC, or IRB, which is a mandatory requirement. To ensure that the review process is balanced and unbiased, the committee must be multidisciplinary, meaning it should include members from various fields. Typically, a committee consists of about 7 to 15 members, each bringing their unique perspective. At the top, we have the chairperson, who must come from outside the institution. This is crucial to maintain independence and avoid conflicts of interest. Then there's the member secretary, usually someone from within the institution, responsible for managing the logistics and day-to-day operations of the committee. The scientific members are also essential. They usually include 1 or 2 basic medical scientists and 1 or 2 clinicians. Their expertise helps evaluate the scientific validity and safety of the research. To ensure legal compliance, a legal expert is included to make sure the protocol aligns with Indian laws and regulations. In addition, having a social scientist or NGO representative helps bring in the community's perspective and social context. A philosopher, ethicist, or theologian provides moral guidance, ensuring that ethical principles are upheld throughout the review process. Lastly, a lay person, someone from the general public with no medical or scientific background, serves as a voice for the common person, ensuring that the community's perspective and concerns are adequately represented. Overall, this diverse makeup helps the committee make well-rounded, ethical, and scientifically sound decisions, which is fundamental to the integrity of the research review process. Let's take a moment to look at the 5 pillars of review that the IHEC uses when evaluating a proposal. First, scientific validity. This is about ensuring the study design is solid and methodologically sound. Remember, good ethics can't exist without good science. If the science isn't sound, then the ethical considerations become irrelevant. Next is the risk-benefit ratio. We need to ask ourselves whether the risks to participants are minimized as much as possible, and whether those risks are justified by the potential benefits of the study. It's about balancing harm and reward carefully. Then, informed consent. This is critical. The participant information sheet should be written in simple, local language so that everyone truly understands what they're agreeing to. Consent must be voluntary, without pressure or coercion, ensuring participants are fully aware of what's involved. Moving on to privacy and confidentiality. We have to have clear plans for how data will be stored securely and who will have access to it. Respecting participants, privacy is fundamental to building trust and protecting their rights. Finally, distributive justice. This means selecting participants fairly, without exploiting vulnerable groups, like those who are economically disadvantaged. It's about being just and equitable in how we include and treat all participants. All these pillars are interconnected. They help ensure that our research not only advances knowledge, but does so ethically and responsibly, aligning with the overall goal of protecting participants and maintaining integrity in our work. Now let's talk about what happens after the IHEC review. Once they've looked over your research proposal, they will issue one of 4 outcomes. First, if your project is approved, that means you can start your research right away, no delays. Second, if it's approved with suggestions, it indicates that only minor adjustments are needed. Usually, these don't require a full second review, so it's a quick turnaround. Third, if the outcome is revision required, this suggests there are significant ethical concerns that need to be addressed. In this case, you'll need to resubmit your protocol for another full review. Finally, if your project is rejected, it means the IHEC has determined that the study is either unethical or unsafe, and it cannot proceed. These outcomes are essential to understand because they show the importance of ethical review in safeguarding participants and ensuring responsible research practices. The Institutional Animal Ethics Committee, or IAEC, is the body responsible for overseeing and approving research that involves animals. Its main role is to ensure that any experiments or studies follow ethical guidelines and prioritize animal welfare. In India, this process is governed by a specific regulatory body called the Committee for the Control and Supervision of Experiments on Animals, or CCSEA. You might also hear it referred to as CPCSEA, which was its former name. CCSEA operates under the Ministry of Fisheries, Animal Husbandry, and Dairying, which is part of the Government of India. This committee was established under the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act, enacted in 1960. The key point here is that there's a clear legal and institutional framework to regulate research involving animals, making sure that ethical standards are maintained across the board. Connecting this to our overall theme, it's important to recognize that ethical oversight is fundamental in research, especially when it involves living creatures. It helps us balance scientific progress with compassion and responsibility. So let's talk about the core objective of the IAEC, which is really centered around the 3 Rs. These are fundamental principles that guide ethical animal research. First, we have replacement. This is about asking whether we can replace animal models with alternative methods, like cell cultures, computer simulations, or even lower organisms such as fruit flies. The idea is to find ways to avoid using animals whenever possible. Next is reduction. This principle encourages us to minimize the number of animals used in experiments. The goal is to get statistically valid results while using as few animals as necessary. It's about being efficient and responsible with our resources. Finally, we have refinement. This is all about improving procedures to lessen pain, suffering, and stress for the animals involved. For instance, using better anesthesia or improving housing conditions can make a significant difference. Together, these principles ensure that animal experimentation is only done when absolutely necessary, and always with the utmost compassion and care. They connect directly to our broader goal of ethical and responsible research, respecting animal welfare while advancing scientific knowledge. Let's take a closer look at the composition of an IAEC, or Institutional Animal Ethics Committee. It's designed to be highly structured to prevent any institutional bias, ensuring that all decisions are fair and balanced. First, there's the biological scientist, who is a senior researcher from the institute. Their expertise helps guide scientific rigor and integrity. Then, we have a scientist from a different discipline, which is crucial because it brings an outside perspective, helping to ensure that the committee considers multiple viewpoints. Next, a veterinarian is included to focus on the health and clinical welfare of the animals. Their role is vital in making sure animal welfare standards are upheld. We also have the scientist in charge of the animal house, who is responsible for the day-to-day care of the animals and ensures that protocols are followed on the ground. In addition, there's the main nominee, often appointed by the government, representing the CCSEA. This person is responsible for ensuring that all rules and regulations are adhered to. To support this role, there's also a link nominee, serving as a backup in case the main nominee is unavailable. Finally, we include a socially aware nominee, someone interested in animal welfare, but not directly involved in the research. This helps incorporate a broader societal perspective and ensures that ethical considerations outside of research are also considered. Overall, this diverse composition helps maintain transparency, objectivity, and ethical oversight in animal research practices. Let's talk about some of the key responsibilities involved in ensuring ethical and responsible animal experimentation. First, protocol review is crucial. Every experiment must be thoroughly described on Form B, and this needs to be approved by the IAEC before we even order a single animal. This step helps ensure that all experiments are ethically sound and scientifically justified from the very beginning. Next, facility inspection plays an essential role. The team regularly monitors the animal house to make sure conditions are optimal, proper ventilation, appropriate temperature, good hygiene, and enough space for the animals. Maintaining these standards is vital for both animal welfare and the integrity of our research. Another important responsibility is monitoring endpoints. The IAEC defines a humane endpoint, which is the point at which an animal is experiencing too much pain or distress. When this happens, the animal must be euthanized to prevent further suffering. This is a key aspect of ensuring humane treatment throughout the experiment. Finally, record keeping is fundamental. The institution needs to maintain detailed records, like the animal call register and mortality records. These logs are essential for accountability, tracking animal health, and ensuring compliance with ethical standards. All of these responsibilities are interconnected and help us uphold the highest standards of animal welfare and scientific integrity. Today, I'll walk you through the categorization of experiments as outlined by the IAEC. First, it's important to note that the IAEC can only approve experiments involving small animals. These include mice, rats, rabbits, hamsters, and guinea pigs. When it comes to research on large animals, such as dogs, cats, monkeys, or horses, the process is a bit more involved. The IAEC can recommend these projects, but the final approval must come directly from the CCSEA at the national level. In the context of animal research in India, there's a standard application form known as Form B. This form is mandatory and must be submitted for permission to conduct experiments on animals. It's a standardized document that's reviewed either by the Institutional Animal Ethics Committee or the CCSEA. So the key takeaway here is that the categorization of animals directly influences the approval process, with small animals having a more straightforward pathway through the IAEC, while large animal research involves an additional layer of review at the national level. This system helps ensure that all experiments are ethically sound and properly regulated according to the type of animal involved. Let's take a closer look at the key sections or parts of Form B first. We have the project title and duration. This includes the specific name of the study and the exact time frame, which is usually approved for 3 years. It's important to clearly define what the study is about and how long it will take. Next, we have investigator details. Here, we provide information about the principal investigator, or PI, including their experience in handling animals. This helps demonstrate that the person responsible has the necessary expertise. Moving on, we need to specify animal details. This covers the species or strain, such as Sprague dolly rats or C57BL6 mice, as well as their age, weight, and sex. Additionally, we break down the number of animals in each group, like control versus experimental groups, to show how many animals are involved and how they are organized. Then there's the justification section. This explains why this particular study is necessary. It should address why the research can't be done using computer models or cell cultures, emphasizing the importance of the 3Rs: replacement, reduction, and refinement. Following that, we describe the procedures involved. This is a step-by-step outline of what will happen to the animals, including any injections, blood sampling, or surgeries. It's essential to be clear and detailed here. Finally, we have pain management. This section covers the use of anesthesia and analgesics or painkillers to keep animals comfortable. It also includes the concept of a humane endpoint, which is the point at which we stop the experiment if an animal is suffering or in distress. Together, these sections ensure that the study is well-planned, ethically sound, and in line with regulatory requirements. When it comes to common pitfalls to avoid, one key area is vague descriptions. For instance, simply saying animals will be sacrificed isn't enough. You need to specify how you'll do it, whether it's CO2 inhalation or cervical dislocation. This clarity is crucial for ethical and regulatory reasons. Another important point is justifying your sample size. If you ask for 50 rats but only provide a justification for 30, the review committee will flag it. To avoid this, always perform a power calculation to determine the appropriate number of animals needed for your study. This ensures your research is both scientifically valid and ethically responsible. Lastly, be mindful of personnel involved. Every person handling the animals must be listed on your protocol and must have completed the required CCSEA-mandated training. Proper training and clear roles help maintain animal welfare standards and ensure compliance throughout your project. By paying attention to these details, you'll strengthen your application and demonstrate a thorough understanding of responsible research practices. Let's talk about publication ethics. This refers to the set of standards and best practices that researchers, editors, and publishers need to follow. The goal is to make sure that scientific literature remains honest, transparent, and reproducible. These principles are essential because they maintain trust in the research process. The global gold standard for these rules is established by COPE, which stands for the Committee on Publication Ethics. Their guidelines are widely recognized and help ensure consistency across the industry. Now, it's crucial to understand that violating these standards can have serious consequences. It can lead to paper retractions, blacklisting of authors, and damage to one's professional reputation. So, maintaining ethical standards isn't just about doing what's right, it's also about safeguarding your career. Next, let's look at the major ethical violations in research publication, often called the mortal sins. These are typically grouped as FFP: fabrication, falsification, and plagiarism. Fabrication involves making up data or results and then reporting them as if they were real. It's essentially inventing findings that never actually happened. Falsification, on the other hand, means manipulating research materials, equipment, or processes. It also includes changing or omitting data to make the results appear better or different from what they truly are. This compromises the integrity of the research. And then there's plagiarism, the appropriation of someone else's ideas, words, or results without giving proper credit. It's like passing off someone else's work as your own, which is a serious ethical breach. Understanding and avoiding these mortal sins is fundamental to maintaining the integrity of scientific research and upholding the trust that the community and the public place in us. Now let's take a closer look at authorship and roles in research. To be listed as an author, a person must have made a substantial intellectual contribution to the work. This means their input goes beyond just helping out with some tasks. They've been actively involved in shaping the research and its findings. However, there are some common unethical practices we need to be aware of. One is ghost authorship, where someone who significantly contributed is left out of the author list. This often happens in industry-sponsored trials, where the true contributors might be hidden to give the appearance of impartiality. Another issue is gift or guest authorship. This occurs when a senior professor or colleague, who didn't actually work on the paper, is included just to boost the chances of acceptance. It's important to recognize that such practices undermine the integrity of authorship and the research process. Finally, the corresponding author is the person responsible for handling communication with the journal. They ensure that all ethical standards are met and that the paper adheres to publication guidelines. Understanding these roles and avoiding unethical practices is crucial for maintaining trust and transparency in research. This connects to our overall theme of research integrity and responsible authorship. Let's talk about submission integrity. One key point is simultaneous submission. This means you shouldn't send the same manuscript to more than one journal at the same time. You need to wait for a decision, usually a rejection, from one journal before submitting elsewhere. This helps maintain fairness and respect for the review process. Next, there's the issue of salami slicing, or data fragmentation. This is when researchers break up a large study into smaller parts just to increase their publication count. While it might seem harmless, it actually distorts the scientific record because it can give a misleading picture of the research's significance. Finally, we have redundant or duplicate publication. This involves publishing the same data or results in multiple journals without proper cross-referencing. It's a serious ethical concern because it can artificially inflate one's publication record and mislead the scientific community. All these practices undermine the integrity of research and the trust we place in published science. It's crucial to adhere to ethical standards to preserve the credibility of our work and the broader scientific enterprise. Let's talk about peer review ethics. Peer reviewers really act as the gatekeepers of science. Their main ethical responsibilities include a few key points. First, confidentiality. They cannot share your unpublished data with anyone, no matter what. Next, objectivity. Reviewers need to judge the work based on its scientific merit, not on who the author is or where they come from. Then, there are competing interests. If a reviewer is a direct competitor or even a close friend of the author, they are required to recuse themselves from the review process. Now, let's consider financial conflicts. This includes things like grants, stocks, or employment with a company that has a stake in the tested product. Non-financial conflicts are also important. These might involve personal rivalries, political beliefs, or religious leanings that could bias judgment. A good rule of thumb here is always disclose any potential conflicts. Remember, having a conflict of interest isn't necessarily unethical, but not disclosing it definitely is. This brings us to conflicts of interest, or COI. A COI exists when secondary interests, like financial gain or personal relationships, could influence a researcher's professional judgment. So, being transparent about these interests helps maintain trust and integrity in the review process. Ultimately, these ethical guidelines support the fairness and objectivity of peer review, which is crucial for the credibility of scientific research. Let's wrap up with a quick summary of the key organizations and concepts we've discussed. First, IHEC, or the International Health Evidence Council, plays a vital role by introducing its responsibilities, outlining its composition, and explaining its core pillars and the ultimate outcomes it aims to achieve. These elements help ensure that health evidence is managed effectively to inform policy and practice. Next, we have the IAEC, the Institutional Animal Ethics Committee. We covered its introduction, emphasizing the importance of the 3Rs principles: replacement, reduction, and refinement in animal research. We also looked at its composition, responsibilities, and the significance of Form B, which is essential for ethical approval and oversight. Moving on to publication ethics, we delved into its introduction, highlighting major ethical violations that can occur in research and publishing. We discussed the importance of proper authorship, maintaining integrity in submissions, and being transparent about conflicts of interest. Lastly, we underlined the ethics involved in the peer review process, which is crucial for maintaining trust and quality in scientific publishing. Connecting all these points, it's clear that maintaining strict ethical standards and clear organizational responsibilities is fundamental to advancing credible and trustworthy research. This overall framework ensures that scientific progress benefits society ethically and responsibly. Thank you so much for your time and attention today. I really appreciate your interest and engagement. I hope the insights shared have been helpful and inspiring. Remember, the key points we've discussed are all about understanding the importance of these concepts and how they connect to our overall goals. It's been great to explore these ideas together, and I encourage you to apply what you've learned. Once again, thank you for being here, and I look forward to seeing how you take these ideas forward.